Hey guys, good morning. It's 8 o'clock in the morning and I figured, you know what? It's time again to make another video. It's been a while, I know, because I've been working on a level design framework for my students in the first year. So it involves a lot of coding, a lot of asset creation. Um, it will be open to the public hopefully pretty soon. I will post somewhere on this channel as well, so a link to GitHub where you can actually download the entire scene. But that's in the future. It's gonna be awesome, if I say so myself. Um, but in the future, and today I want to talk a little bit of something that's really underlit if in videos in on the internet, and that's lighting. Because it's really difficult subject to actually explain to someone, because it's more of a gut feeling than actual science, if that makes sense. Sometimes you make these really weird choices, like where you make the light green instead of like the color you would expect, and then it looks awesome. And you're like, why? So it's a little bit more like gut feeling and testing than actually knowing how. But there are some basic tricks that you should know if you want to light a scene inside any game engine ever. And that's something we'll discuss today as well. And of course, I'm gonna actually light the scene that I got over here, which is an interior. So we're gonna do two videos on this. One is this scene, so an interior, and the other one will be an outdoor scene, which is even more difficult because you can't cheat. Because there are like two main light sources, and that's the sky and the sun itself. So it gets really complicated and making it look good. So that's something we'll do later on. But first, let's do this scene. So when you start lighting, a couple of things that you should know about. And the first thing is that everything should be static. I'm gonna reset this quickly. So if you want to make something look awesome, every object that does not move should be made static, which is why I always make a empty game object, and I call it world or scene or whatever, and put every object under there. So you can see here every object is a child of the world itself, and then in the world itself I just set it to static, and then every child itself gets set to static as well. By doing this, you can actually bake lighting into it. If it's not static, you can't bake, so it doesn't do anything. So that's something to keep in mind when you want to do light baking. Make sure that everything is static, right? Um, it's something you should do anyway. When something doesn't move, just make it static. It's also more efficient. So nothing wrong with doing that at all. So keep that in mind. If it doesn't move, make it static. If you want to bake lighting, make it static. Static makes the world go round in this case. So how do you start, right? That's the main question that I get a lot. How do you start lighting? Um, well, first thing I do when I've got a scene that I want to light or lit is when I've set everything to static, I just make my first initial bake, because that takes the longest, because it has to like get all the objects in the scene and do some stuff with it. So the first bake will take forever. The outdoor scene that I've made recently, it was about 10 miles by 10 miles, and that took 19 hours to bake. Just the first initial bake, so you can get the idea that you want to get that done as soon as possible. So in this case, I'm gonna do it as well. I might just pause the video because it might take a little bit too long. But so when you go to your window lighting tab over here, you get this bad boy over here. There are a couple of settings that are actually really important, and the first one that you should always lower is this one over here. Hope the baked resolution, pixels per unit. Right now it's set to 40, which is ridiculously high. You don't need it. I've never used it ever. Like 10, 15 is more than enough, unless you do like the final Uber bake. Otherwise, in this case, it's useless, right? So I'm gonna lower it down to 5, and it's more than enough. So leave everything else. Just leave everything else and just hit build. So this is the first initial bake. It might take a while, and there it is. Beautiful, and it looks absolutely disgusting. Couple of reasons. It makes sense, to be honest. Right now, the entire scene is shiny because of the skybox. Because it doesn't have anything else in them yet, so it just takes everything it can find, and by default, every object that is shiny will only reflect the skybox. So therefore, this looks really bad, but that's perfectly fine because we're gonna add lights at some point. So for now, this is fine. But the first initial bake is done. So what next, right? So first thing I tend to do is to focus on the ambient light. In this case, the ambient light is being caused by the sky itself and the skybox. I don't like it at all, right? So I'm gonna go for a night scene because it's fun. So the first thing I always do is then change my skybox up here. So I got one already done. Let's find it again. Sky, there it is. And it's just a simple skybox that I found on the internet. I like it. It's pretty low res, but for an interior scene it's perfectly fine because you can't see it anyway, so fuck it, right? So in this case, when it's done, I'm gonna set my skybox and I'm gonna set my ambient GI to baked as well, so that the lighting from the sky also gets baked into the object. And then I'm gonna hit build again, and it might take a little bit longer this time, or not. And pop, see, nice and black. But you can see now we got some really basic ambient lighting in here that actually looks okay-ish. Um, But in case you like, I don't like the ambient light itself, you can also set the ambient source to a color. You can say something like bluish, towards bluish, that works as well. In this case, let's try it, right? So ambient color, and just hit build again, and done, right? It doesn't change that much, but it's perfectly fine. Okay, so this is done. What do you do then, right? What is next? So when your ambient light is done, you then focus on the main source of light, also known as the key light. And since this is a night scene, it would be the moon, right? So I'm gonna check my skybox. The moon is over here. I don't really like it, so I'm gonna find my skybox. Sky, it's over here, and I might just wanna rotate it a little bit, so a little bit more towards the actual edge, a little bit more actually. So the moon is now in front of the windows. A couple of reasons, because then we can actually have like this really nice lighting being cast through the windows and create this nice light over here. So in this case, since we changed the skybox, we need to bake it again because it's fun. So let's just bake it quickly because it should be done pretty fast. There it is. Okay. So a couple of things about the main light source is that it's a bit weird, right? You just it's a lot of guessing. So in this case, I'm gonna rotate it a lot, and I'm gonna turn on my shadows, of course. Let's do soft shadows because they're pretty. And then you just try to position it the way you want it to be. So look at the shadows and see if they're interesting. Maybe something like this would be a little bit more fun. Maybe then make the light a little bit bluish, because it's the moon, so a little bit bluish. And let's set it to baked. So the baking type, set it to baked. Mix doesn't work at the moment in Unity 5.5. It's completely broken. They're fixing it, I've been told, so maybe in the future it'll work again, but right now it doesn't work. It's really annoying actually. And I'm gonna lower down my intensity to something like 0.75, right? Piece of cake. So when we've added this, we're gonna turn on a couple more features, which is the ambient occlusion, which is always awesome, and the final gather. For those who don't know what this is just where the light, well, by default light casts photons, which is just a particle, and by turning on final gather, the particle actually bounces around the scene and lights the scene by doing that. It's always a make awesome button, so don't be afraid to turn it on. In this case, I am going to turn off denoising though, because it just takes up time, and I'm gonna lower down my atlas size to like 512. The atlas size is the bigger the more detail. In this case, I don't want that much detail yet at this stage of the game. I just want to see what it looks like, right? So when I turn these two on, I'm just gonna hit build again, and we should see a pretty big difference. This might take a while, actually pretty fast. Oh, there it is. There we go. Okay, you can now see that we have a little bit of light here. This actually looks really nice, but it doesn't look as good as we thought, right? So in this case, because of the shadows, probably because the shadows are a little bit weird. So I'm gonna set it to hard shadows, see what it looks like then. See, this is the main downside of doing lighting. It's just very time consuming. So let's make it again, see what it looks like then. Not that much different. Okay, so we need to change the light source itself. So I'm gonna rotate a little bit more, probably something like this. I don't know. It's just guessing. It's just guessing. Let's just bake it again. See what it looks like. In this case, not much different at all. Okay, let's increase the intensity. Let's go nuts for a second. Let's go 2, so we can actually see the lighting itself pretty clearly. Let's just bake it again. So this is pretty fast because this scene is really small, and we're using very low settings. Oh, there it is. See, now actually get light. Oh, this is okay. Okay, I'm gonna raise it up so it's a little bit more longer. So the shadow should be a little bit longer, and bake it again. Hooray! Oh, okay. Okay. Do we like this? Nah, a little bit, right? So, but keep in mind though that this won't be the main source of light. It's just there to create an interesting lighting effect on the objects itself. In this case, maybe a little bit more like this, and build, and we wait. It's fun. It's a waiting game. Nah, I actually kind of liked it when light hits this table over here, so let it back, and do it again, and again. Yeah, it is a little bit more interesting. You got a nice ray of light hitting those chairs and tables. I like that. So okay, let's lower down the intensity again, something like that makes sense, for 0.75 or 0.5 maybe even. Again, that's just testing, right? That's testing. And build. Okay. So you get a really nice soft lighting across the table. I like that. So okay. So what do we do next? Well, next we're gonna cheat. We're gonna cheat real badly. We're gonna add a light source in front of these windows, which will cast the skybox into the actual building itself. It's cheating. First of all, I'm gonna make a empty game object. I'm gonna call it lights. So you're nice and organized. This is really important. Lights, and I'm just gonna drag my directional light in there, so it's a child. Okay. Let's add an area light. They're really sexy, and they're nothing more than a giant plane casting light. But keep in mind that they can only be baked only, so they have to be baked, otherwise it doesn't work. I'm just gonna rotate it so it's actually 100, probably 180 degrees. Everything else 0. Okay. And then we'll move it right outside the window. I'll turn off my lighting for a second so I can see what the hell I'm doing. Maybe even isometric view, and then we place it. And then we change the width and height so it actually matches the window. Make it a little bit bigger though than the window itself. It's just to be safe. Okay. And let's see. You should probably move it forward as well. Something like here. Okay. That is nothing more but copy paste it. Let's check again the isometric view. If we're actually placing it correctly. Don't mind the character. There we go. Maybe a little bit lower in this case. There we go. That's 2. And a window over here as well, so I'm going to drag it. Oh, not like that. I'm going to drag it. Rotate it. Probably 90 degrees on the y-axis. Correct. You can also see that there is a small thing pointing out here, right? I'm just going to see this part over here. This tells us in which direction the light will actually be cast. So make sure that it's pointing in the right direction, otherwise it doesn't work at all. And you look like a fool. So this view, and place it again over the window. Make it a little bit wider in this case. There we go. Okay. There it is, and move it up front so it's facing the window. Okay, so just bake it and see what happens. So I'm gonna hit bake, and we'll see. It's probably gonna be really ugly because it's set to white, and the intensity is probably really high as well. So we'll just see what happens, right? So it's baking, and we're done. It's got a little bit more light. You can see here on the candles got a little bit more lit. There's a little bit more lighting here as well, but nothing really mind-blowing yet. Let's actually, you can see here is nice though. So let's increase the intensity, right? So again, just be really rough. It's easier. So I'm set to 5 and I'll hit build again, and then we wait again. And there we go. Oh, there it is. See, now you can actually see what it actually does. So it lights the entire scene, and it looks, in this case, not that great because it's too high. The intensity is set way too high, but you can actually see now what it does. So it creates this very diffuse lighting throughout the entire scene, which is really cool. So I'm gonna probably set it to something like bluish color, like dark bluish. This maybe. Bake it again, and I'm not going to touch the intensity just yet though, because the color also affects how bright the light is. So in this case, we'll see what happens. And roll it up. There it is. See, you can see it, how it actually affects it. The intensity. Looks pretty okay though. Actually, not that bad. Keep in mind that this is a night scene, right? So there's not much lighting going on from the outside. So you just want to have this very nice diffuse ambient lighting caused by everything. But this is actually not that bad though. I like that. Okay, let's grab these, put it under there. Okay. So keep in mind though that every object by default still reflects the skybox, which is something we really don't like because that will fuck up everything. So to counter that, we're gonna add a light probe or a reflection probe. If I can actually find it again, reflection probe. This one. Here you can see what happens, right? So you can make it bigger. You can also have like 2 or 4 of them, or 60,000 of them. In this case, let's just make it a little bit more appropriate. So let's grab the y-axis, a little bit smaller. Let's do this in isometric view again. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect though, but make it fit-ish. So 5 in this case. I'm guessing 15-ish or 20, 19-ish. Again, doesn't have to be perfect because we don't care. In this case, let's make the set also a little bit wider. There we go. So by adding this object, this lighting probe, reflection probe even, we make sure that every object in the environment will actually reflect the environment, which is the whole purpose, right? So in this case, I'm going to click on the arrow next to it, and I'm just going to say bake reflection probes. That's it. So, and now all the objects now only reflect the actual environment they are in this case, the interior. It also means that you can see that the lighting changed completely, right? So this is a little bit of an annoying thing. So let's just build everything again. This is the downside of it. But it will make the scene look a little bit more realistic. So I'm gonna up the intensity. 10, that's 8. That's the highest we can go apparently. So 8. And I just want to have like this really soft ambient lighting from the outside, nothing more. Let's see what it looks like when it's big. There it is. This is actually much better. You can still see there's this really soft diffuse lighting, maybe a little bit lower actually. Let's go for 7. Intensity 7. I just want to be there, like visible but not visible, like an actual nighttime environment lighting. So a little bit less visible. There it is. We can still see it though. See, you can still see the lighting here caused from the lights, and that's it. Okay, so since this is an interior, right, we kind of want to have something that like a fire in there, and like candles. We have candles over here, so why not have those light the scene as well? So first thing I'm gonna do is just focus on like the big lights. First the big lights and then the small lights. So in this case, there is a fireplace over here. Over here, you can see I've already added the particle system. So in this case, I'm gonna add a point light to it. So I'm gonna add a game object light point light. I'm gonna find it. There it is. I'm gonna turn on lighting for a second. So by default, every light you add is a real-time light. In this case, I don't want it though. I want it to be a big light because it just looks better. In this case, let's place it. The range should be a lot smaller though, like maybe like, let's do 5. Let's turn on shadows. Let's do hard shadows because it's a fire. And let's make it orangey. Actually looks like fire. Maybe a little bit more towards yellow. There we go. And we'll set it to baked. Like this. Oh, this should be something like this. Maybe 6. And let's see what happens. Right, again, you just hit build and you wait. Because that's the fun part of lighting. Wait for it. There we go. Okay. So what does it look like? It should be a lot intenser. I mean, this is a fireplace, right? And they give out a shit ton of lights, so we kind of want to have a little bit more obvious. So I'm gonna increase first the range, maybe the intensity like 0.5, 1.5, to see what happens. Maybe if this will look good, maybe it doesn't. We'll see, right? Just hit bake again and wait. Again, this is a small scene, so baking shouldn't take that long, but if you have like a big scene, this might take several hours. That's the downside of it, but yeah, such is life. This is much better though. You actually see it's now also casting light here on the bar itself, maybe a little bit, no, exactly, kind of like that though. Okay, let's have a look. Yeah, I like this. This is pretty okay. Nothing brilliant, but it's okay. It's okay. Okay. So we got all of these things here, these awesome chandeliers, right? And they are a prefab. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cheat like hell. So I'm gonna add point lights to it. So I'm gonna place it where the candle should be, like here maybe, like there. Very small range, like 2 or 3 maybe. I'm gonna go for 3 now. Let's do 2 actually. And also make it orangey, orange yellowish. There we go. And turn on hard shadows. And again, I'm just gonna find it. This case is this one. So I'm gonna drag it under there. Chandelier 4. I'm gonna copy paste my lights. Over here. Oh, or not. You try to be a little bit exact, doesn't have to be perfect though. One more. Half the time it's just guessing anyway where it should be. So okay, there we go. A little bit more. Last but not least, this one. Oh, go. And there. No. There. No. Okay. Never mind. And then I'm gonna apply this to my game object. So apply change prefab, and every object now has lights. See? This is the major upside of using stuff like a prefab. You can actually change the prefab later on, then apply change to it, and then every prefab in that scene will have those changes. In this case, this will save me a ton of time. So I'm gonna try it, right? I'm gonna hit build. It might take a while. In this case, it doesn't because all the lights are not set to baked. So baked. So do it like this. Baked, and again apply change to prefab. There we go. And build. And we wait. It could be that we need to increase the range of all the lights by a lot. Yeah, we need to. You can see here that it only affects the ceiling itself. Let's do 3. Let's do 4. No, let's do 3.5. Let's go in between, right? So same thing here, 3.5. And again, apply change to prefab, so all of them get the same things. So let's check it, of course. See, they are the same. Okay. And again, rebuild and build. It's boring, but then again, so is life. Oh, there we go. Yeah, actually, this is starting to look pretty okay. We get a nice glow here on the walls. I actually really like that. The tables aren't affected, but it's fine because of course the candles are pointing up. So I like this. I like this. Luckily for us, there are also some candles here on the table that I've placed for some reason. So let's do the same thing here. I'm gonna add a light. Ooh, there it is. Come on, Jesus Christ. Same thing here. So 3.5. Wanna keep this. The range is pretty similar to each other. Otherwise, you get really weird stuff going on. Okay, if I can find it. My candle's over there. Sometimes this is really annoying placing the objects, but it should be here. Yeah, this is okay. Okay, let's turn on hard shadows again. Actually, let's go and do soft shadows for this one because they're pretty. And again, orangey, yellowish light. Okay, make sure that's set to baked. In this case, there we go. Okay, there's not a candle here, so I'm going to copy paste it and place it roughly off the candle. There we go. Of course, there are more. Of course, you can do the same thing here too. If you added a prefab, you can do the same thing here. In this case, I'm gonna go for the good old-fashioned manual labor. Why not? Just place it where you want it to be. Here-ish. And another one. Here-ish. Okay. And there are some more over here. I'm gonna grab this one. Let's get it done. Well, come on. There you go. And last but not least, this one. Let's save the scene a little bit. Okay. And we shall build again. Good times. Good times. Luckily for us, it's pretty fast. Okay. It's building. So the tables are lit pretty nicely, actually. I quite like that. The entire scene has some light in it. This is maybe a little bit too dark though, this area over here, but maybe you could just cheat by increasing the area lights outside. That will probably fix the entire issue for us. Let's have a look from this angle. Yeah, this part here over here is way too dark, so that's something we need to fix. So let's grab our area lights. Again, let's set them back to 8. And let's bake again. I mean, black isn't bad when it comes to lighting, like complete darkness isn't bad, but sometimes in this case you want to have everything lit because it would just look better. But don't be afraid to have like black scenes or like black lighting, because it's not that bad though. It's actually really not that bad. That's something to keep in mind. Okay, let's grab this chandelier. Let's just cheat. I'm gonna move it maybe here. Oh, I should probably grab that chandelier though. This one. Okay, let's move it to this angle. Maybe one in the corner, so everything is nice and lit. There we go. And again, build. It's clustering because we added new objects to the scene. This is the boring part though. So let's wait for it. Light transport. I'm just gonna pause it for a little bit. It's done, hooray! So we can now actually have a look at it. Okay. One thing though that I'm really annoyed at is all the icons over here, all the gizmos from the lights. I'm gonna turn them off by going to gizmos, and then you can just check them all off if you want to. In this case, I'm gonna turn off my light because it's just really annoying. See if I can turn off everything else. Light pro group, light blue. Hey, actually, why don't you work? Oh, there it is. Okay, so now we have a better overview of the actual scene. What it looks like. I actually kind of like it. It's not perfect. It needs a little bit more love and tweaking, but it's not really that bad. You can add some more here, maybe on the table, on the bar itself, more lights. That will actually help it a lot. But for now, you know what, I'm fine with it. But lighting itself is only half of the work, because you can also do a little bit more. In this case though, since all the lights are baked, we have a bit of an issue when um, your character moves, right? And everything that is not static is not affected by the light baking. So you need to do a little bit different method to make sure that the lighting on the character or wherever is moving is still correct with the lighting in the scene. And you can do that by using a very simple method, and that method is called the light probe group. So light probe group, which will give you something weird, which is light probes. This one by default there are 4, and it's really good method to make sure that the lighting is correct on everything that doesn't move. So I'm gonna go to my isometric view, and I make sure that my edit light probes are on, and I'm just gonna grab these over here and just move them to my bounds of my scene, in this case over here. Make sure that it all are correct is set up, so also the top side and the lower side. I'll turn off lighting for a second. There we go. Okay. Top view as well, make sure that you are correct. So in this case they're here, it's not correct. I'm gonna move them to my walls. There we go. And then you just grab these 2, for example, over here, and then you just hit duplicate selected, and then we'll add 2 more. And the denser your light probe group is, the more accurate the lighting will be. But it's also, of course, more bake time, so that's something to keep in mind. It just adds more and more bake time the more light probe groups you have, but it's definitely worth it, and you should always do that if you're using big lighting. In this case I am, so I'm gonna just keep on duplicating stuff. It's a little bit tedious and boring, but it does make a difference. So just keep on duplicate selected. You can also grab more. I'm gonna be lazy. I'm gonna grab 3 at the same time and just duplicate them. Duplicate selected. Just make sure that you work from all the angles, because right now this side doesn't have any, so I'm gonna do the same thing here. Duplicate selected. Grab 2 and done. So in perspective view, you should now see like a massive grid of balls, yellow balls. This is perfect. This is exactly what you want to have. So I'm going to turn off edit light probe groups. I'm going to deselect it, and now we're just going to hit bake again, and it should bake all the lighting into these tiny little balls, so the objects that are moving through the scene can sample those balls and see what lighting is like. So in this case it's just a light probe group, so it shouldn't take that long. And there we go. It's now baked. You can see it now as well here. The light probe group. To our lighting. There we go. See now all the lights are now sampled by these balls, so everything that is not static will actually get similar lighting. I'm going to turn it off though, because it's really annoying. I'm going to turn off the light probe group. There we go. So that's something to keep in mind. So always add a light probe group and a reflection probe, or probes, multiple. You see here as well, you can see that it's now reflecting the entire scene, the actual environment. That's something we want to have. So you can also change the settings here, so like it's a little bit more accurate if you want to. Let's bake it so it get a little bit more sharper. You can see here the difference as well. Something to keep in mind that you should always do that. Now they've on GitHub there's an awesome plugin that you can download. Well, it's not a plugin, it's like an extra script for Unity, and it's called the post-processing behavior stack. It's brilliant. It's a actual post-processing plugin script that actually mimics like movie stuff. So let's see, I'm going to add it to my main camera, right? Main camera. I'm going to add the post-processing behavior, this bad boy over here, and then it needs a profile. So I'm going to make my own profile over here. I'm just going to quickly, I'm just going to grab it somewhere, interior, fuck it, and create my post-processing file. Let's call this interior. Then you get all these really nice settings, so but just make sure you assign it to the actual profile. There you go. Now this is actually really sexy what they did. Let's make this a little bit bigger. No, you can't. Can I? I can. Okay. So the cool thing is that you can now do really cool stuff, right? So you can have anti-aliasing. It's subtle, but it's there. Ambient occlusion, so screen space ambient occlusion, screen space reflections. They're really sexy. Depth of field, you can actually add actual depth of field motion blur, eye adaptation. So that's when you go from inside outside, you get this really nice white blue like this. Blue itself is also really kind of cool. And color grading. And this is sexy as fuck. You can actually grade your entire scene like an actual movie. In this case, I'm gonna go for neutral. And then you can make like stuff everything a little bit more bluer or orangey or green. Well, actually, this is kind of cool. Um, Sexy. This is something that's definitely worth it and definitely worth checking out. In this case, Filmic is really high contrast. In this case, I'm gonna up the exposure to. So you can see it's really high contrast. So this is before. It's really high contrast. It's really sexy if you know how to use it. You can also increase the temperature to a little bit more orangey or bluish, like make it a little bit colder. In this case, like this is kind of cool, but maybe let's go for neutral again. So temperature, see actually what it does. So let's up the contrast in the scene. Oh, this is kind of cool. Maybe we can change some stuff. Let's make it a little bit more blue, subtle blue. Maybe a little bit orangey, teal orange, or green if you want to. Let's reset it. Let's go log. This is just really nitpicky, like small details that you can add. They will make a big difference. So before, after, it looks much better. Let's add some bloom actually. Up the intensity. Can't see any bloom for some reason. Let's lower down the threshold. Bloom is cool when it's subtle. So don't go overboard. You can also add dirt to it if you want to. And depth of field, it's always sexy, so you can actually increase. So let's do something like this. Yeah, focal length. Let's make it really blurry for a second so we know what the hell we're doing. So let's focus it on close by. So this is close phone call. And then you can shape, then you can play a little bit with the aperture or f-stop. Plus 2.5, so you get this really nice depth of field effect. This is really sexy. Definitely look into it. You can also use the debug view, so this is the ambient occlusion, so you can see how far it should be, so the intensity but also the radius. In this case, let's set it to high because we can, and ambient only, high precision. Just turn everything on if you want to. See what it does. Maybe a little bit more intense if you want to, but one is always more than enough. And then you get this pretty okay scene actually. I'm gonna turn it off for a second so you can see what it looks like. It's okay, right? It needs a little bit more love and tweaking, but this is not that bad at all. For like half an hour work, this is pretty okay, I suppose. So lighting is really fun, but it's very time consuming. This is not something you do on the last day of your project, like, oh fuck, we need to add lighting, click, done. It takes a while, and it takes some love and tweaking and mostly patience. So interiors are easier than outdoor scenes, which is why we're going to do it next time, because then we also need to dive into the actual settings of baking. But for now, let's do one final bake. I'm going to turn on denoising again. Let's set this like to 10, this one to 512. Let's do the default to high because we can, and then you just hit bake again. This might take a little bit longer, I suppose. It does take a little bit longer, so I'm gonna pause it. It's done. Whee! It only took 10 minutes, so could be worse. Downside of light baking. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So couple things to keep in mind when you start doing lighting. Always start with the biggest light, or well in my case, I first start with the diffuse light from the sky, then the actual key light, so sun or the moon, and then you start filling in these smaller lights. But you go from big-ish to small to really small. Make sure that you add the probes and the light probe group. It will save you a lot of time and pain and suffering and crying mostly. Um, and have patience. That's pretty much it. You know, you have to have patience. You need to just sit down with a nice cup of coffee or a glass of whiskey or beer or 10 of them and just sit down and bake till you start crying and bleeding from every hole possibly, and then you're almost done. So, but it's really fun, right? Lighting is really important to your game or scene or whatever. So you should um, see it that way as well. So it's important. It's half the game, half the level, half the scene that you're working on. If the lighting is bad, it will look bad. Simple as that. So next time we'll do an outdoor scene, which will be a little bit more technical and a little bit longer probably because it takes a long while to make as well. So keep that in mind. But for now, have fun lighting, have fun baking, and we'll see you again next time.